we must use what we have been given. Scripture, 1 Timothy 4, verse 14. Neglect not the gift that is in thee. God expects us to use everything He's given us before He gives us more. Desires, appetites, and passions are valuable assets that, when harnessed properly, can achieve great good. We have a responsibility to make full use of these invaluable resources He has provided us before we can expect Him to assist us further. That's kind of going off of well, it's a Christian, actually it's a human thing, that we believe that if we ask for something that the Lord will grant it. We talked about earlier in our previous chapters that God doesn't give us anything if He's already given us the tools to achieve the objective that we have. He's not going to give us more tools if He's already given them to us. And my belief is that the desires, appetites, and passions He's given us are meant as tools to be able to accomplish these great things. But since our system is set up essentially, maybe unintentionally, to systematically remove those things and to crush those desires and passions within students, that you can't complain because God's given us these things, but we have set up a system that destroys the very gifts that He's given to us to achieve the things we're asking Him to help us with. Specifically when it comes to the idea earlier of sexuality, seeking to destroy this passion rather than to harness it often leads to big problems. Relatedly, denying our less acknowledged but no less serviceable appetites can cause problems as well. Yeah, so this is referring to a lot of the sexual dysfunction that happens to occur in, in Christianity in general and Mormons specifically. There's a lot of sexual dysfunction, and it goes back to this very principle. There's this tendency amongst Latter-day Saints that because they're afraid of sexuality, they tend to react and teach out of fear. So technically we're taught that we should wait to have sex before we get married, but the way that it is implied and the way that it is taught, it implies that sex is evil rather than sex is something we should wait until we're married. And it has perpetuated within the culture to the point where we are so intimidated by our own sexuality often in Mormon culture that it leads to dysfunction when we finally get married. Until we learn to harness rather than hamper the innate and valuable appetites that God has given us, we will never see the full flowering of our divine potential. Another example of this is in the phenomenon of the midlife crisis. The phenomenon of midlife crisis is real, and it is the result of individuals reaching a point in their lives where they finally come to themselves and observe the lack of fulfillment they have achieved thus far in their lives. Individuals experience this, lose all motivation, fall into depression, and sometimes endure great personal pain and anguish as they grapple with the truth of their lost opportunities. Not only does society experience a loss of immediate productivity, but this is indicative of a much larger waste in years of potential energy misspent through lives half-lived. If we help each other discover, cultivate, and harness healthy passions, we will not only be helping ourselves, but society at large. I've seen this in people's lives, and this is the result of what we were talking about earlier with the way that the education system systematically prevents us from or discourages us from cultivating those healthy passions, and this is the result of that system. It's the midlife crisis. I have two scriptures. The first one is Doctrine and Covenants 88, verse 33. Quote, "For what doth it profit a man if a gift is bestowed upon him, and he receive not the gift? Behold, he rejoices not in that which is given unto him, neither rejoices in him who is the giver of the gift." Unquote. Another one is Matthew 25:29. Quote, For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. but from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And that's a warning. If we don't, and that actually happens, you see, in people that, in the midlife crisis, people eventually lose the ability to have the confidence and ability to pursue those healthy passions. I mean, some people end up, they go through a midlife crisis and they come to themselves and they make the best of what they have left, which is where you get things like the movie, I think what's it called, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty or something. I can't remember the title. Something about Walter Mitty. People can salvage their lives and make it wonderful. But there are many people that, because they take so long to get there, when it comes down to finally reconciling themselves, they're too afraid, because they lose the ability to finally listen to those feelings, because they've been suppressed and put down for so long that they lose their own potential. That potential has an expiration date, and the less you listen to it, the smaller it gets, and the harder it is to tap and to listen to. So that concludes chapter 4. There's one more thing here. It's an exercise. I highly recommend a book by Paulo Coelho. He's I believe his native language is Portuguese, but it's called The Alchemist, or in that language I think it's El Alchemisto. But it's translated into English if you speak English. It's called The Alchemist. I highly recommend that book. It's written as a metaphor or allegory. It is one of the most uplifting, profound books I've ever read in my life. I highly recommend it if you're looking for inspiration and guidance in your own life and you're trying to figure out what to do and where to go. It has some I learned some profound lessons when I subjected myself to that book. It took me a couple tries. Like the first time I read it, I read like a page or two, because my friends my married friends, 2 friends that were married had recommended it to me. In fact, I borrowed their copy. They lent it to me, and I just I tried it for a page or two, and I didn't resonate, and so I just stopped, set it on the shelf, and probably a month later, I kind of had I saw it on the shelf again, and I had kind of some, I think, pains of guilt, because I hate when people borrow books and they don't return them, and I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably try that, so that when they ask, I'm aware. So then I sat down and started reading it, and I did not stop. It is a fantastic book, prophetic book in my view. If you have ears to hear and eyes to see, and you have the reason to need the information that he offers in that story, it can be a profound experience. So that's chapter 4. Again, if you can download this the manual that I'm reading from, and the link is in the comments. It's by no means a perfect manual, but it's pretty well developed. So, and it's free. So, thanks for joining me. See you next time.